morning, everyone. Jason Caldwell is a prime example of what Fordham has to offer. Jason works at Goldman Sachs, where he is responsible for managing assets for institutions, endowments, and foundations. Jason has held multiple roles in the financial industry, including Regional Vice President and Head of Sales for HRC Associates. Jason is a former team captain and All-American football player, known for his resilience and perseverance when faced with adversity. Jason holds a bachelor's degree in finance, a master's degree, and an MBA, all from Fordham University. Jason grew up in West Baltimore with his mother, stepfather, and 4 siblings. Here today to discuss his journey to Wall Street and to share a few words of encouragement, please join me in welcoming Jason Caldwell.
Thank you, Erica, for the nice introduction. I think I wrote it, so please no one fact check any of that. My name's Jason Caldwell, and I am honored to be here today to share some words of encouragement and hopefully to inspire some of you all. I'd like to congratulate you all on a job well done. Not only have you excelled athletically, but you also have done the same thing in the classroom, which I think is, if not equally, more important. I want to leave you all with 3 kind of topics or messages today. The first is, each and every one of you has what it takes to be successful. The second thing is, you should never let someone else's limitations dictate your success. And the third and final thing is about giving back, because you never know what someone else is going through or who needs your help. I was one of those people who needed the help. And I think, just like me, many of you may not look like your story. In fact, I think no one looks like their story. I'm originally from Baltimore. I grew up in the inner city, grew up in a single-parent household. My mom was on welfare. My father was in and out of jail, in and out of drugs. And I don't say this to receive pity or for any of you to feel bad about my upbringings, because everything that I've been through has made me who I am today. But I tell that story because I want you to paint a picture of, or see the picture of where I come from. In Baltimore, in my neighborhood, they told us we only had 3 options. Those options were jail, drugs, or the cemetery. Now, that may sound morbid and it may sound horrible, but that was the reality for me, and it was the reality for a lot of people that grew up in my neighborhood in Baltimore. When I was 15 years old, my first brother was murdered. When I was 16 years old, my second brother was murdered. Growing up in Baltimore in my neighborhood was challenging. And where I am today, I mean, it may not look like I grew up in that rough neighborhood or that rough upbringing, but like I said, no one looks like their story. So people ask me, well, how did you make it out? How did you become successful? Back then, I thought success was determined by who had the most money. So what did I do? I went out and I tried to find whoever had the most money and replicate what they were doing, to be like them. At the time, growing up, as a youth, I had never been outside of Baltimore, so Baltimore was my world. And within my world, the richest person I knew was my uncle, and I wanted to be just like him. My uncle always had wads of cash. He always dressed like the young guys. He always had on a fresh pair of Jordans or the newest sneakers. My uncle drove 2 Lexuses. He had one was a drop top or a convertible, and the other was one of the first cars where when you press a button, the car parks itself. My uncle had a townhouse in the outskirts of Baltimore where when you press a code, the gate opens up to hundreds of townhouses on acres of land. My uncle was the richest man in my world, and I wanted to be just like him. And I always knew that if I can see it, then I can be it. Or if I can touch it, then I can become it. Or if I can talk to my uncle and find out how he became successful, maybe I can be just like him. Well, my uncle was a drug dealer. So this entire time I was modeling myself to be like someone who was doing something illegally. And if I would have ended up being or attaining his success, I would have probably ended up in jail, on drugs, or in the cemetery. Fortunately for me, and like many of you, I was an athlete. So I used my athletic ability to receive a scholarship at a private high school in the outskirts of Baltimore. Now at this private high school, the kids at the school that I went to drove the same car as my uncle. The kids that I went to school at this high school had twice as much money as my uncle. The kids at the school that I went to, when you pulled up to their house and you typed in a code and the gate opened up, it was their mansion on acres of land. And I remember saying to myself, wait, I thought my uncle was the richest man in the world. Oh, these kids, they're the richest people in the world. I don't want to be like my uncle. I want to be like them. What do they do? So I began to model myself behind these kids. I knew that if I can see them, then I could be them. Or if I can touch them, I could become them. If I can talk to these kids and find out how they became successful, then maybe I too can be successful. So I did just that. I began to wear a shirt and tie to school. I began to pronunciate my words. I began to take on their likeness, hoping that maybe I could be just like them. It took me 4 years to realize that these kids weren't the richest people in the world. It was their parents. So this entire time, I've been trying to model myself to be like them, and they weren't the rich people. So I was back to square one. Where do I go from here? For my senior project at this private high school, they gave us a week off from school in the spring, and they said that they wanted us to do something we've never done before. Then we had to come back to school after that week off, and we had to talk about it in front of the entire school. I had no idea what I was going to do. In fact, I was a little embarrassed because some of my friends were traveling outside of the country, and they were going to come back and talk about their experience traveling to Germany or to France or, to a place outside of the United States. Some of my other friends, they asked their parents to buy them instruments like a guitar, and they came back, or during that week off from school, they learned how to play a song, and they would come back and speak to the entire school or play the song in front of the entire school. And then I had other friends whose families were knew celebrities. They knew entertainers. They knew professional athletes. We had Cal Ripken come in and speak on the behalf of one of my classmates. Well, I'm from the inner city. I come from a poor household, single-parent household into my preteen years, so we didn't have money to leave to get outside of Baltimore, let alone outside the country, so traveling was out of the question. We didn't have money to buy a guitar or an instrument or piano, so that was out of the question as well. I didn't know anyone famous or any celebrities, so having someone speak on my behalf seemed easy, but I didn't have anyone to do that for me either. So one of my teachers said to me, "Jason, what are you planning to do for your senior project?" And I had no idea. I didn't want to write a rap because that would have been stereotypical of the black guy, basketball, football player to write a rap. So I didn't want to do that. So he said to me, "Well, my son, he makes a lot of money. I don't know what he does, but he lives in New York. Why don't you go to New York and shadow him for a week, then come back and write about your experience?" And I said, "That sounds a lot better than a rap." "Yeah, maybe I will." So I came up to New York. I shadowed my teacher's son. His name was Timmy Whiteley, and he's a managing director at Merrill Lynch. He works on the sales and trading desk. Timmy he lives in the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and he had a loft that oversaw Central Park. So he must be rich. This was 2004. Every day I was with him that week, we drove to and from his job in a limousine. Wow, he must be rich. We had steaks for lunch. We had steaks for dinner. This was high quality, high class living. I was in the realm of, I felt greatness. 2 out of 5 days, I shadowed one of his counterparts on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Now in 2004, I don't know if anybody here has been to the Florida Exchange, but in 2004 was busy. It was lively. It was people yelling, screaming, calling out numbers. I had no idea what was going on, but it was this contagious energy that I loved and I wanted to be a part of. One of the guys on the Florida Exchange, his name was Sal De Carlo, and he said to me, "Jason, how are you enjoying your time on the floor?" And I said, "I like it here. I don't know what you guys are doing, but it looks like it's cool, it's fun. I want to be a part of this." And he said, "Well, come over to my computer. Let me share with you what I'm doing." And he said, "Jason, tell me 2 stocks that you think are good to invest in." And at the time, I didn't even know what a stock was. I took a wild guess. I said the first thing that came to my mind, Nike. And he shook his head in approval. So I was like, all right, I'm on to something, all right. And he said, "Give me another one." And I said, TiVo. Now back then, TiVo was something where you could record or rewind the television shows. And he nodded his head in approval, and then he typed away on his computer screen. So I said, after about 2 minutes, I gained the courage to ask him, well, what did you just do? Why did you ask me to tell you 2 companies that were good? And in a nonchalant voice, he said, "I put $100,000 into both of those stocks." $100,000. I don't think at the time I've ever said the word $100,000. $100,000 to me felt like infinity. You know, it was more than I could comprehend. And I said, "Don't make that decision because of me. I'm just a kid from Baltimore. I don't want you to lose money. Don't do that. I don't know anything about stocks or Wall Street or anything." And he looked over at me, and I remember it as if it was yesterday, and he said, "Relax, it's just money." And at that very moment, I realized I don't want to be my uncle who's a drug dealer in Baltimore. I don't want to be these kids at St. Paul's at my private high school who are getting money from their parents. I want to be these guys on Wall Street. I want to be Sal De Carlo. I want to be a Wall Street banker. And from that point on, I've modeled myself to be just like these guys on Wall Street. And I'm living out that dream that I set in place over 15 years ago. Now, I tell this story, this long story, because it's flawed. And I don't know if any of you guys caught it, but I was looking externally for success. If I would have let my uncle's success dictate my growth, then I would be selling drugs in Baltimore right now. I wouldn't be here today. If I would have let these kids at this private high school dictate my success, then I would be a full-time student, and I wouldn't have, aspired to be anything else. I wouldn't be here today. If I would have let these guys on Wall Street dictate my success, I would not be here today. It was flawed. I was looking externally for success, when in all actuality, it was right here. I didn't have to go far. I didn't have to look anywhere else but inside me for success. And that's the same thing for each and every one of you. Each and every one of you has what it takes to be successful. No matter how far your parents went in life, or no matter what your classmates are doing, no matter what your teammates are doing, each and every one of you has the decision to be successful. It's up to you to be successful. Now, along the way, I was looking for success, but what does that really mean? What does success really mean? I think that's a term that a lot of people use loosely, but there's no real definition for what success is. Your success could be, owning a mansion. Someone else's success could be driving a Ferrari or making $1 million. But for me, my success has changed, but my success is giving back. I don't think success is determined by how much you make or how much you do or how much you accomplish in life. For me, success is how many people you bring with you. Giving back. That's what success is. Every job that I've gotten since I've graduated Fordham in 2010 has been through a Fordham alum. It's giving back. That's success to me. Now, some of you are freshmen, some of you are sophomores, so you have a long way until you achieve your ultimate goals or success in life, but You should always look to give back. And that's not just giving back monetarily or giving back money. That's also giving back your time, giving back time to your classmates, you know, who don't know what it's like to be an athlete. Giving back time to your teammates who don't know what it's like to be also a student. You are the full package. You are student athletes. You all are champions. Now, I usually talk to the football players, and I share with them that we are all teammates. And I extend that to each and every one of you. Whether you play softball, or baseball, or golf, or tennis, or basketball, any sport, we're all teammates. We just graduated different years. I'm here to help out anyone that I can, and I feel like it's my honor and my privilege to do so. You all are the drivers of the next generation. You're the future of our country. But don't forget, you don't have to look externally to be successful. Success is in each and every one of you. Now, before I go, I'll leave you all with a quote by Ralph Woodrow Emerson. And this quote is dear to my heart because it kind of speaks about my progression in life. He says, "Follow not where the path may lead. Instead, create your own path and leave a trail." And I challenge you all to do that. So thank you so much for your time. I'm here to help out any way I can, and I wish you the best of luck on your futures. Thanks.